Welcome back to Working Faith, where we take a spiritual approach to career success. I'm your host, Jalen Isley, and today we're talking about how to work with our teams. Here to share her knowledge and expertise in teamwork is Sarah Soliman. Sarah is a content connoisseur serving associations and businesses with informative video content, marketing, and turnkey hybrid event solutions. With over a decade of experience in production, Sarah brings her expertise into her own company, Soliman Productions, covering the meetings industry at large. She's currently the face and content creator of MPItv and works with MPI Publications, the meeting professional, to produce year-round video content. She hopes to continue inspiring and educating meeting professionals in all facets of their career through various initiatives she finds great passion in. We are so excited to have you here today, Sarah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I was honored to be invited as a guest. So thank you.
Definitely. Well, in this show, it's all about how we can lean into the tenets of our faith to positively impact the workplace and grow our careers. So let's just jump right into things. Let's start off by talking about your own faith journey. We know you've built an amazing business in the professional meeting industry, and you know better than most how to effectively work with a team to get things done. So let's talk about your faith journey as a Christian. What are some of the Christian principles that resonate the most with you and how they shaped who you are today?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. It's interesting because I actually grew up Catholic. I'll kind of give you a little bit of my history, if you will, on my journey into Christianity, and then kind of go into how my business has been positively impacted through that. So I started, I was born into an Egyptian family as a Catholic family as well. And, I've always been around church. I've always been, taught that there is a God, there's someone greater than yourself out there. So I always had that faith instilled in me. And as I became an adult and I actually moved to Orlando, Florida from West Palm Beach, Florida to go to college, I started to explore Christianity outside of the Catholic Church community and really found my true faith, I would say, and my true spirituality as an individual by going to non denominational church services. I absolutely fell in love with the Christian faith. And just the religion and everything that it stands for. And it moved me. It changed me in a lot of ways. And this is, a young girl in her 20s at the time that is sort of lost and you're trying to find yourself as it is. And, as I started to get more so into my career, I realized that servant leadership piece was something that I wanted to instill in my career, whether it would be working for another organization, which is how I started my career prior to starting my own business. And I always led that way. I always had that servant leadership mentality in the back of my mind because it's something that really stuck with me and a lot of messaging that you would hear in church. Right.
Hmm.
So it's that selfless love, that selfless leadership. And I think when you carry that mentality in your career, it sort of builds this bridge of trust with your team. It builds a sense of humanity with your team, which is something that has been super important to me. So when I started my business, that whole journey was a leap of faith. I never once saw myself as a business owner until life got a little complex and difficult. And I took a leap of faith into becoming a business owner. So, from there, I realized that it's not just about being good at your skill set in your career, but it really is about how comfortable you make people feel in your presence as a leader. And giving them the opportunity to grow as individuals, but also fail sometimes. And if they fail, to be there for them as that servant leader to help pick them up. And I feel like, as I've grown my team, we've got 11 people full time working with us now. And they all know that. They all know that this is something that is part of our company culture, and that I hope that they leave every day knowing that they too have that servant leadership ability within themselves. So it's not just like a Sarah thing, but it's every single person on the Soliman Productions team has that servant leadership mentality and takes it back to not only in their, professional lives, but hopefully in their personal lives as well.
Interesting. So I'm hearing a few different things, a few Christian principles going on here: servant leadership, faith, and then just this genuine connection with humanity, or recognizing the humanity in everyone and having that genuine connection and respect for that person. Do I have that right?
You absolutely have that right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And then, this kind of leads me to my next question. You already, started to delve into that. How have those principles shaped your professional values? And I'm hearing you saying like this is part of your culture now, that it's not just you. You're trying to instill that in the rest of your team as well. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing when I interview people to, potentially hire them for a position within Solomon Productions, one of the first things I tell them is about our culture, because that to me is the foundation. That is what the building blocks to helping us build into a bigger, better company. And that culture is very family centric. And
Hmm.
part of my faith, part of my belief in, as I mentioned, servant leadership, is building that trust. And when I think family, I think trust. So I want to have that same trust that I have with my parents, my sibling, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, that I've built with them over the years, but bring it into my business. So that is something that is tremendously important to me as a leader, is that trust component. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's kind of helped us evolve into where we are. It's helped us grow faster than a lot of other small businesses. And when I reflect on what that all means, I feel like it's very much due to the fact that we have a very strong foundation, and it all kind of comes back to that humanity piece. I think oftentimes as
Yeah.
leaders we try to overcomplicate the process of hiring people. And at the end of the day, people are people, and they just want
Hmm.
to be appreciated, loved, seen, heard. It's very simple. And those are all principles, in my opinion, of Christianity. And it's something that I remind myself of every single day. I have plenty of bad days where I walk in my office and I want my door shut. I really don't want to deal, if you will, with life, right? With the various issues that come with leading a team of people in general. You're dealing with different personalities, you're dealing with different behaviors. People are stressed, they handle stress differently. And you too, as a leader, handle all of those things differently as well. But, what it all comes down to is that family dynamic, and remembering that I need to ensure that my team is always seen, heard, appreciated, and ultimately treated like human beings without overcomplicating the
Hmm.
whole I'm your boss process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So you took the Christian principles of servant leadership, faith, and humanity, and you turn that into the foundation of your company and built a culture of trust that way. I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that go ahead.
Yeah, and you know what else? Like I we treat our clients that way too, which is a huge component of, again, that success piece, because we're strong here internally, and that strength as like that family dynamic carries into the veins of our clients. So our clients very much feel the like the strong relationships that we have here. They feel the
Hmm.
trust, they feel the energy within our team. And that's probably the greatest compliment that I receive, is not just like, oh, your team's so talented, they're good at production, they're good at, what they do, but it's really like your team. If some, I've had a client say this to me before, if something, God forbid, ever happened to me, Sarah, my team would still remain, like the show would go on,
Mm-hmm.
because of how our foundation is. Like they know that they can trust my team just as much as they can trust me because of what we've created internally. And I just encourage, other leaders that are listening to this, if you're struggling to manage people, just remember that they're people. They're not just employees, they're not just numbers, but they're people, and their needs are very much like your own needs. So how do you want to be treated in a place of work, in a place of business? And how can you step outside of yourself and ensure that your people are treated as such?
Yeah. And the fact, I'll be honest with you, when you delved into the territory of family at work, I am not someone who has always um, thought about it that way in terms of family, but I really appreciate you equating family with the ability to trust one another and rely on one another. And yeah, sometimes people are going to have some interesting days, but that's the point of building that solid foundation. If you're going through something that day, you can still trust your team members to show up for you, and they can trust you to show up as needed as well. So I think that is an excellent way to think about establishing a team relationship and moving forward effectively, focusing on that trust for one another and how that shows up for the clients you serve. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And another component that I think is very much instilled in faith, just having faith and having spirituality, is emotional intelligence, right?
hmm,
So we talk about IQ a lot, but I think EQ is something that is often overlooked in business, in places of work where it's the hustle and grind, and you just got to hit your sales goals and do this and do that. But like that emotional intelligence piece, which is the ability to pause and really understand, not just be self-aware, but be environmentally aware of what's happening with other people on your team, understanding that, if someone doesn't handle stress the same way that you do, how can you meet them where they are? And really stepping again outside of yourself as an emotionally intelligent person, and just being in their space, being one with them in that moment, and helping them overcome whatever obstacle they're facing in work, right? So
yeah.
that's something else that I think has really helped in our success, is that you have to be emotionally intelligent and not just self-aware, but aware of others and their behaviors, and how they're feeling and what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, definitely. And when you when servant leadership is a core tenet of your faith and your spirituality, you can't help but to be present with the people that are around you, because that is now a part of just who you are. And so that's how you affect the space that you're in. So no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. People don't always think about emotional, intelligence and understanding how that really does play a role in the effectiveness of a team. Can you can you share like a concrete example of a challenge or an opportunity you face related to teamwork where you have consciously relied on these spiritual principles to guide your behavior?
Sure. COVID is a
Ah,
prime example. So,
uh-huh.
as you mentioned earlier, our company serves the meetings and events industry. So, conferences, trade shows, any event that brings a large group of people together. That's what our company serves. And as I'm sure everyone's well aware, when COVID happened, there were no in person events. I mean, that was a tremendous impact to our business. And for any small business owner, it was a very scary, eye-opening moment, because that single-handedly could have taken us out on its own.
Hmm.
But in that moment, I remember when we were getting phone calls in March of 2020 of our clients canceling their events left and right, left and right. I joke that it felt like someone was breaking up with you over and over and over again over the phone, because that's what it felt like. It was so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Every email that you were getting was filled with bad news, and to no fault of their own. It was just what was happening around the world.
Right.
So, what do you do in that moment, right? Like, what do you do as a leader in that moment? And I just remember breaking down one day, but then also just feeling this sense of inspiration in a way where I credit that to my faith. I credit that to my complete trust in God and whatever plans he has for not just me, but this company, right? And what this company does for others that are involved with it. So I sat my team down around our conference table and I looked them all in the eyes and I said, my promise to you is that you will all be okay through this, meaning I am not going to lay anyone off. I'm not going to reduce salaries. We are going to figure this out again as a family.
Hmm.
And I promise to do whatever it takes, roll up my sleeves, get down and dirty to figure out how we're going to prevail through this challenge as a team. And what
Hmm.
I need from you is that same attitude and faith reciprocated back to me and this company. So that is probably the most concrete example that I can
Hmm.
give you of how we as a family, as a team, just completely excelled beyond COVID and all the barriers and boundaries that it brought to our business. And I credit that solely to just being a person of faith, someone who knows that there is, again, a purpose for this company. There's a purpose for me. There's a purpose for me having all of these amazing people on this team. And it didn't stop because of COVID. That was just another stepping stone that we were going to go through as a team and just go through it together. And that's exactly what we did. And we had the best year we ever had in 2020, and then another great year in 2021. And it just goes to show you how faith can really lead you through any trial and tribulation, even when it feels like your hands are tied and you literally the world is shut down. There is still a way around it, and I truly believe it's because of the faith that I have in God, and just knowing that there is something more out there than us.
Right, right. And Sarah, I haven't shared this with you, but I remember watching you and Soliman Productions during that time period because I'm like, all they do are these big, amazing, wonderful meeting events. How are they going to ship? What are they going to do? And sure enough, just like that, I see the hybrid solutions coming up. I see the video conferencing and you being able to take that experience of what would be a mundane, dreadful virtual experience into something amazing and inspirational for its participants. So you definitely were able to shift during that time period in such an amazing way. And listeners, I don't want you all to miss this. I mean, this is someone who has taken the time to invest in her faith and her spirituality to the point where she has built a foundation of trust, within her company. And as a result of it, the team was able to come together and really accelerate your business at a very interesting time in life.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And you know what else? I think like that loyalty piece, like so there's trust and then there's also that loyalty component to faith and really having that spirituality built in you. I mean, I in that moment during COVID, God was loyal and he always
hmm,
is. So my loyalty and part of that servant leadership piece, my loyalty was to my team, and how can I ensure that they believe my loyalty and they believe that foundation that I've been preaching to them for years about, hey, we're a family. And just because times are tough and they will be tough, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to toss you to the sidelines. You know what I mean? Like it just I wanted it's important even when times are tough to still remember that foundational piece. And that's
Hmm.
what it all comes down to. And we never let go of that, even when we hit rock bottom. I mean, we were at rock bottom. We had to start a whole new business essentially, and we
Yeah.
did it together. So like that faith, that trust, that loyalty, that servant leadership, it all played a role in the success of our company today.
Wow. Yeah. To me, what was so powerful about what you just said was that you turned to your God to see, how does God treat me? How does God show up for me? Okay. Because I serve that God, that's how I'm going to show up for my team. And just even connecting those dots, and having the courage and the trust to emulate that for your team. I think that is so powerful, when people can turn to their faith in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, and it's definitely led me through a lot, not just professionally, but personally. I mean, it will always be okay because I know God's on my side. I know God's on my team. I know I'm
Hmm.
never without a teammate. So whatever life throws at you, the business part is kind of, I mean, it's tough, but it's kind of fun, but like
Yeah.
personally, sometimes life is not so fun. And having that teammate in God to lean onto or lean to is tremendous.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Well, you shared a little bit about tough times, business, and personal life as well. Let's talk about spiritual wellness, especially considering COVID. There has been such an emphasis from company leaders and influencers and mental health experts, about investing more into someone's total wellness, and spirituality is definitely a part of that. So, are there specific practices you use to maintain your own spiritual health and well-being?
So that's an interesting question. I could be much better at this part. I'm not going to lie. Um, One thing that I did change during COVID as a result of COVID and how much we were overworking ourselves was just the boundaries of time, my
Hmm.
time versus the time invested answering emails. When I decide to answer emails, really kind of shutting it down at a certain point of the day to ensure that my wellness, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, is all being met. So that's something that I definitely changed, and I've maintained that mindset even to this day.
Hmm.
And it's really helped me define clear boundaries and clear lines of just, I will get back to this, but just not right now. I will get back to it on Monday morning. And this Saturday, this Sunday is for me. It's my time to spend it however makes sense for me to ensure that my cup is filled.
Hmm.
So that's something that I've, practiced and changed. Of course, meditation. It's something that I have gone into, but not in the way that I want to get into. I am trying to find what that looks like for me, outside of prayer, but really just like that meditation where I just sit still with absolutely nothing in my brain and just clear everything from my mind and my heart and my spirit. So, I don't know all the answers, and I know it looks different for everybody. But within my workplace on Fridays, I've also implemented, a work from home policy where our team's expected to work, but hopefully that plays into that boundary piece and giving people that wellness factor of, okay, I do have some time to myself to be in my home, to maybe get a workout and walk outside, do some laundry, whatever that looks like for them, but just have time for themselves and not be stuck in the office an additional day of the work week.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and very practical as well. Sometimes when people think about spirituality and their wellness, they think if they're not sitting on a mountaintop isolated for 10 days, that they're not, investing in their spiritual health. But that's not true. Sometimes it's just as simple as having a clear boundary between when you're working and when you're taking time for yourself so you can replenish yourself, and show up at work when you need to. So I think that's very practical and so useful, a useful reminder for people. It's funny that you mentioned the meditation. I can tell you that I have been on a meditation journey for like years, many, many years. I won't put a number to it, but it's been years. And last night was the first time I was able to reach that level of emptiness, of just kind of an empty space. And I've been doing this for many years now. Meditation goes through phases. And sometimes it's a matter of just being aware of what you're thinking of. And then sometimes there's nothing to think of. And, you have that. But I appreciate, you wanting to achieve certain goals in terms of your spirituality, that other people can work towards as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just having conversations like this for me is very spiritually healing. Just having open dialogue with people, just hearing from others and what they're doing in their own journey is very healing to me. I that's how I learn. That's how I can find ways to become better in my own wellness journey. So this to me is very healing. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it was so great having you on the show today. We're gearing up for the start of a new work week. What's your advice to our listeners on how they can take a spiritual approach to teamwork?
Yeah, I think just reflect. Being very reflective as a human being is important because it allots you that time to literally look back, reflect on how you are as a leader, how you are as a worker, how you are as someone who serves a value within the company that you work for, and figure out what you want to do differently, what you want to do better, what you're doing too much of that you want to do less of, and just really understanding your value and what you bring to the table. I'm a very reflective person. I often look back at, what could I have done better in that situation? How could I have delivered this message to an employee or a client differently? Did I come off too aggressive or was I not aggressive enough? Was I, I ask myself questions a lot. It's part of my reflecting on myself as a leader. And as you start the coming work week, take the time to reflect on things that you maybe didn't like your approach the week prior and what you're going to do to change it for not just the coming work week, but the future in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we become better, is just by being reflective, being honest with ourselves, and making the proper changes that we need to make so we become better servant leaders for our team, our community, our family, and everyone in between.
Yeah. And that makes sense because you can't control anyone else's behavior anyway. You can only control yourself. And hopefully by demonstrating your commitment to becoming a better you and a better team member each day, it inspires someone else to do the same. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Definitely. Excellent. Well, once again, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And thank you all for listening to Working Faith. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. All the show notes, information about our guest, Sarah, and link to submit your career questions can be found on the website, workingfaith.com. Remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with others. I'd love to hear your comments. You can always engage with me directly by joining the Working Faith group on LinkedIn. And we'll be back next week with more tips on how you can take a spiritual approach to your career success and work your faith. Make it a great day. Take care.